James stared at her, struck by the weight of her words. Why me, Elira? Out of all the galaxy, why would you choose me? She stepped closer, her voice soft but fierce. Because you see me. Not as a goddess, not as a queen, not as a symbol. You looked at me and you saw a woman. No one has ever done that. Her words cut through the doubt in his heart, but only for a moment. He still feared the storm outside these palace walls. He still feared what the future would bring. That night, James could not sleep. He walked to the nursery that Elira had ordered prepared. The walls glowed with soft lights, the cradle carved from shimmering stone. He stood there for a long time, imagining a small child lying within it. Would the baby laugh? Would it have Elira's glowing eyes or his human smile? Would it ever know peace? He touched the edge of the cradle and whispered, Please, please let me be strong enough. Behind him, Elira appeared quietly. She wrapped her arms around him from behind, resting her cheek against his back. You are stronger than you think, she said softly. And together, we will be stronger still. James closed his eyes, tears slipping down his face. For the first time, the doubt did not vanish, but it felt lighter, like a burden he no longer carried alone. But deep inside, he knew the storm was not over. The worst was yet to come. The palace walls had grown restless. The city outside was louder each day, protests in the streets, voices shouting against the queen and her unborn child. James felt the tension in every corner of the empire. Whispers of rebellion filled the air. The council grew more divided, and some nobles disappeared from meetings altogether. Everyone knew what that meant. Betrayal was near. James tried to stay close to Elira, but even he could feel the storm building. One night, as he walked through the halls, a loyal guard rushed to him. Ambassador, the guard whispered, fear in his eyes. There are movements in the lower city, armed men. They mean to storm the palace. James's blood ran cold. He hurried to Elira's chambers, finding her seated calmly by the window, her hand resting on her stomach. She looked at him and said quietly, It has begun, hasn't it? He nodded. Yes, they're coming. We must get you to safety. But Elira shook her head. Her voice was firm. No, I will not run. If I flee now, the people will believe I am ashamed of our child. I will stand and face them. James felt torn between fear and admiration. He wanted to grab her hand, to beg her to think of herself, but he knew nothing would move her. Elira was not only a queen, she was a mother defending her child. The rebellion came at nightfall. Explosions shook the outer gates. The sound of steel clashing filled the halls. Loyal guards rushed through the corridors, blades drawn, their armor glowing faintly in the dark. James picked up a sword from one of the fallen guards. His hands trembled, but his heart burned. He had never been a soldier, but tonight, he would fight. The enemy stormed through the halls, shouting for the queen's head, shouting to end the unnatural bloodline. James stood shoulder to shoulder with the loyal guards, striking back against the rebels. His arms ached, his body screamed in pain, but he refused to fall. Each time he looked toward the throne room, he saw Elira standing, tall, crown gleaming, her eyes unshaken. At one point, an assassin broke through, rushing toward her with a blade. James threw himself forward, tackling the attacker to the ground. They struggled, the blade slicing across James's arm, but he forced the weapon away. Rage filled him, a strength he never knew he had, and with one final push, the assassin fell. Breathing hard, blood dripping from his arm, James turned to see Elira watching him. Her eyes softened with something he had only glimpsed before, love. The battle raged for hours. The palace shook with fire, the cries of the wounded echoing in every hall. But slowly the rebellion began to break. The queen's loyal guards pushed forward, forcing the traitors back. And then, when hope seemed uncertain, Elira herself stepped down from the throne. Her voice thundered across the chamber, amplified by power that was not of this world. Enough! Every rebel froze. Even James felt the force of her command ripple through the air. Her silver eyes blazed like lightning. You fight against me? Against the life I carry? Then hear this. This child is not a curse. It is destiny. It is the bridge between two worlds, the hope you have prayed for but were too blind to see. If you call it unnatural, then so am I. If you call it unworthy, then so are you. Her words shook the hall. Even the rebels lowered their weapons. Uncertain, trembling. One by one they backed away, their anger drowned by the sheer power of her presence. The rebellion collapsed beneath her voice. Silence filled the chamber. The fires still burned, the bodies still lay across the marble floor, but the fight was over. James dropped his sword, his chest heaving. His body was weak, but his spirit felt alive. He turned to Elira, who now stood in the center of the ruined throne room, strong and unbroken. She looked back at him, and in her gaze he saw more than a queen. He saw a woman who had chosen to fight not for power, but for love. That night, the empire had been tested. Blood had been spilled, loyalties revealed, enemies defeated. But Elira had stood firm, and James had fought beside her. Together, they had proven that their bond, and the life they had created, was worth defending. And though the battle had ended, James knew this was only the beginning. The true test was yet to come, the moment their child entered the world. The rebellion was over, but the scars of battle still marked the palace. Walls were cracked, floors stained, and smoke lingered in the air, yet inside the royal chambers there was peace. The queen's time had come. James paced the hallway outside her chamber, his hands clenched, his heart pounding harder than in any battle he had ever fought. He could hear Elira's cries of pain, the voices of the healers rushing to her side, the muffled sound of orders shouted in the alien tongue. He wanted to go in, to hold her hand, to be with her, but the guards kept him back. "Let them work," one said firmly. James nodded, though his chest ached with helplessness. He had fought assassins, survived riots, faced down rebels with a sword in hand, but nothing terrified him as much as this moment. Behind that door was Elira, his Elira, fighting not enemies, but life itself, to bring their child into the world. Minutes stretched like hours. James pressed his forehead against the cold stone wall, whispering prayers to gods he didn't believe in. Please let her be safe. Please let the child be safe. Please. At last the doors opened. A healer stepped out, her silver robes glowing faintly. She looked at James and gave a small smile. "You may go in." James's legs nearly gave out as he stumbled into the chamber. The sight before him stole his breath. Elira lay on the great bed, her face pale with exhaustion, her silver skin damp with sweat, but her eyes glowed brighter than ever. In her arms, wrapped in soft, shimmering cloth, was a small child. James froze. His heart skipped a beat. The baby was unlike anything he had ever imagined. Tiny, fragile, yet radiant. Its skin shimmered faintly like Elira's, but its eyes, when they fluttered open for the first time, were deep brown, human brown. His eyes. Elira looked at him, tears shining in her gaze. Her voice was weak, but filled with joy. "James, come see." He moved forward slowly, as if afraid the moment would vanish if he walked too quickly. He sat beside her, his trembling hands reaching out. Elira placed the child into his arms. The weight was so small, yet it felt heavier than the whole galaxy. James stared down, his throat tight, his eyes burning. The baby squirmed softly, a faint glow pulsing from its skin, and then it made a small sound. A soft cry, fragile but alive. James's tears fell freely. It's real," he whispered. "Our child. Our miracle." Elira leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Do you see, James? You thought it was a mistake, but look." She touched the baby's tiny hand with her finger, her lips trembling in a smile. "This is not a mistake. This is destiny." Outside the chamber, news spread like fire. The queen had given birth. The empire held its breath. waiting for a sign. Was this child a monster, or was it hope? When Elira finally appeared before her people, she carried the child in her arms, James standing at her side. The crowd that had once shouted for blood was now silent. Thousands of eyes stared at the infant. The baby's glow shimmered, the same glow their people had not seen in generations. But then its eyes opened, human eyes, brown and deep, filled with life. The crowd gasped, and then slowly voices rose, not in anger but in awe. It is the heir. It is the bridge. It is the future. The voices grew louder, turning into cheers. For the first time, Sarathi and humans stood together, united by the sight of one small child. James held Elira's hand tightly as the sound of hope filled the air. His doubts, his fears, the endless nights of guilt, all faded as he looked at their child. He had thought he had ruined her life, but instead, together, they had changed history. Later that night, as the palace finally quieted, James sat with Elira and their child. The baby slept peacefully in its cradle of glowing stone. Elira's hand rested in his, her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever think," James whispered, "how strange it is? A human and a queen from different worlds, and yet here we are." Elira smiled softly. "Strange, yes. But sometimes the universe does not make mistakes. Sometimes it creates miracles." James looked at her, then at their child. For the first time since he had come to this alien empire, he felt at home. "James," she said softly. He bowed his head slightly, unsure if he should speak. "Your Majesty." But she crossed the room, closing the distance between them, her eyes never leaving his. "Do you not wonder why I called you here?" James swallowed. His throat was dry. I thought perhaps you wanted to discuss the treaty." Elira shook her head gently. Her hand rose, pressing against her stomach. The gesture was small, but powerful. "No, James. I called you because there is life growing inside me." The words struck him like thunder. His heart stopped, his body froze. "Life?" he whispered, almost choking on the word. Her glowing eyes softened. "Yes, a child. Our child." The room seemed to tilt around him. 100 thoughts raced through his mind. Impossible, dangerous, forbidden. He shook his head. That can't be. It's not possible. We're different species. It is," she interrupted firmly. "The healers confirmed it. I carry your child." James stepped back, his chest tightening. "My God," his voice cracked. "Elira, do you understand what this means? Your people, your council, they'll call it a crime. They'll hate me. They'll hate you." But Elira did not look afraid. Instead, tears shone in her eyes, though her lips curved into the softest smile. She whispered, "Do you not see, James? For centuries my people have suffered. Our bloodline is fading. No heir has been born to the Sarathi throne in generations. Our empire has lived in silence, knowing one day it would end." Her voice broke, but her eyes burned with hope. "And then you came, a human, an outsider. And now, there is life within me. Do you not understand? You have given me hope. You have given my people a future." James wanted to believe her joy, but fear gripped him tighter. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if the walls themselves were listening. "Elira, they won't see it that way. They'll see me as a defiler. They'll say this child is unnatural. They'll try to take it from you." Elira's hand reached for his, firm and steady. "Let them try. I am queen. I will protect what is mine." She guided his hand to rest gently against her stomach. James felt a strange warmth beneath her touch. His breath caught in his chest. "There is life," she whispered again. "Can you feel it? It is small, but it grows. Our bond has created something the galaxy thought impossible. You call it a mistake, but I call it a miracle." For a long moment, James could not speak. His mind screamed with fear, but his heart His heart felt something else, something terrifying, yet beautiful. The idea of a child that carried his blood and hers, was more powerful than anything he had ever imagined. Finally, he pulled his hand away, his voice breaking. "Elira, what have we done?" She looked at him, tears slipping down her cheeks, but her smile never faded. "We have changed everything." And in that moment, James realized there was no turning back. What was once a single mistake had now become the most dangerous secret in the galaxy, a secret that would either destroy them or save them all. The news did not stay hidden for long. Secrets inside a royal palace were like flames. They spread, no matter how hard one tried to smother them. Within weeks, whispers filled the halls. Servants spoke behind closed doors, guards exchanged glances, and nobles murmured during council meetings. The queen was with child, and worse, everyone knew the father was human. At first, James tried to stay invisible. He avoided the eyes of the nobles, kept his words short, and spent more hours alone in his quarters. But silence could not protect him. The Sarathi council soon summoned him. He entered the grand chamber where 12 elders sat in a circle, their robes heavy with silver embroidery. Their glowing eyes were cold as ice. One of them spoke sharply. "Human," the elder's voice echoed. "What crime have you committed? Did you think our queen was yours to touch?" James stood firm, though his palms shook. "It was not like that. I never meant—" "Silence," another elder hissed. "You have tainted the bloodline. You have doomed our empire." Before James could answer, Elira's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. She stepped forward, regal and unshaken, her silver gown trailing behind her. Her gaze swept across the elders, daring them to speak again. "This is my child," Elira declared, her voice strong, "and no one, no council, no noble, no soldier, will speak against it." The chamber went silent. No one had expected her to defend him so openly. One of the elders rose, trembling with anger. "My queen, forgive me, but this child is unnatural. We must protect the empire. We must remove it before—" "Enough!" Elira's voice thundered. The walls shook with the force of her power. The elder fell silent at once. Elira's eyes blazed as she continued. "You speak of protection, yet you forget what I carry. For centuries, our wombs have been barren. For centuries, we have prayed for an heir. Now there is one, a future. And you call it a curse?" James had never seen her so fierce. Her presence filled the chamber until even the proudest elder lowered his eyes. But Elira's defiance only fueled whispers outside the court. Rumors turned into riots. Some Sarathi citizens believed the child would save them, a gift from the stars. Others called it a monster, a threat that would destroy their traditions. James felt the danger growing. Assassins tried to slip through the palace gates at night. Twice he fought them off with the guards, his hands bloody, his heart burning with guilt. Each time, Elira stood firm beside him, refusing to hide. One evening, James begged her to reconsider. He found her standing on the balcony, the stars reflected in her eyes. "You must think of your people," he pleaded. "They are afraid. If you stand against them, they will turn on you." Elira turned to him, her expression softer than before. "And what do you suggest, James? That I give up our child? That I let them take the only hope I have ever known?" James lowered his head. "No. But maybe if I leave, the anger will follow me instead of you." Her hand touched his cheek, warm and gentle. "Do you not understand? They fear because they do not know. But they will learn. They will see what I see." Her words gave him strength, but still, doubt gnawed at his heart. Every night he wondered if he had ruined her life. Every day he wondered how long before the rebellion reached the palace walls. The storm broke sooner than expected. One night, fire lit the sky. Shouts echoed from the outer city, an angry crowd marching toward the palace. Their voices roared in unison. "No human blood on the throne! No half-breed heir!" James rushed to Elira's side, fear pounding in his chest. But when he found her in the throne room, she was already waiting. Crown upon her head, robes flowing, her face unshaken. She stood tall before her guards, her voice steady as steel. "Let them come," Elira said. "If they wish to take my child, they will learn what it means to defy their queen." James looked at her then, really looked at her, not as a queen, not as a ruler, but as a woman standing against an empire for the sake of love. His heart ached with both fear and admiration. The uproar had begun, and James knew from this moment on there was no escape. The galaxy itself would watch what came next. The palace had survived the uproar, but the weight of it pressed heavily on James. Every step he took in the grand halls, he felt eyes burning into him. Some of the Sarathi guards looked at him with loyalty, others with quiet hatred. Whispers followed him everywhere. He had become the most talked about human in the galaxy. Not as an ambassador, not as a diplomat, but as the man who had given the queen a child. At night, James lay awake in his chambers, staring at the ceiling. Doubt crawled into his mind like shadows. He thought about Earth, how his people would see this. He thought about the Sarathi, how many would never accept him. Most of all, he thought about the unborn child. What life could it possibly have? Would it belong to either world or be rejected by both? One evening he sat alone in the gardens, his hands trembling. The flowers glowed softly, but even their beauty could not calm him. His heart was heavy, and he whispered into the quiet air, "What if I've ruined her life? What if this child is nothing but a curse?" He did not know Elira had been standing nearby. She stepped from the shadows, her gown brushing against the grass. Her glowing eyes studied him carefully, sadness flickering in their depths. "You think I'm ruined?" she asked gently. James turned quickly, shame flooding his face. "Elira, I didn't mean—" "Do not hide it from me," she said, walking closer. "You carry this doubt in your eyes every day. Speak it." James swallowed hard, his throat tight. "I fear for you, for the child, for everything. Your people will never accept me. They may never accept it. What if this child grows up hated by both worlds? What if I've only brought you pain?" Silence stretched between them. The queen's face softened, her lips trembling with emotion. Slowly, she took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "Do you feel it?" she whispered. James hesitated. Beneath his palm, he felt warmth, a faint thrum of life. His chest tightened. "This," Elira continued, her voice breaking slightly, "is not pain. This is not ruin. This is hope, James. Something I thought I would never have. You gave me more than a future. You gave me something no crown, no throne, no army could ever give." Her hand covered his, firm and unshaking. "You gave me a reason to keep living." Tears pricked at James's eyes, but still doubt gnawed at him. He pulled his hand back, running it through his hair. "But the danger, it keeps growing. The people outside, every day the whispers get louder. They'll try again. They'll never stop trying." James never thought his life would change the day he first met the alien queen. He was not a soldier, not a warrior, not even a famous man. He was just an ambassador, a middle-aged human chosen to represent Earth in a treaty with the Sarathi Empire. His job was simple: smile, shake hands, speak carefully, and try not to cause any trouble. But fate had different plans for him. The Sarathi were not like the other alien races humans had met before. They were elegant, tall, and frighteningly beautiful. Their skin carried a faint shimmer as if starlight lived inside them. Their eyes glowed softly, like twin moons reflecting light. Every movement they made was graceful, almost like a dance. Humans often felt clumsy in comparison, but James had learned to look past appearances. Still, when he entered the royal court, for the first time he couldn't help feeling small. The court was vast, a hall made of black stone that caught the light of glowing crystals overhead. The Sarathi nobles stood in silence, their long robes trailing behind them. None of them smiled. None of them spoke. They simply waited for their queen to arrive. James stood at the center, holding his translator device, his palms sweating inside, his gloves. He had spoken to generals, to leaders, even to alien kings before, but he had never faced someone who was treated like a living goddess. Then the doors opened, and she entered. Queen Elira. She was taller than the rest, her presence filling the room like a rising storm. Her gown shimmered silver, flowing like liquid light. A crown of black crystal sat upon her head, but it was her face that caught James's attention. Strong, sharp features, yes, but softened by something else. A quiet sadness. Her eyes glowed, brighter than the others, but instead of coldness, James thought he saw longing. The Sarathi nobles dropped to one knee the moment she appeared. The hall was filled with silence, broken only by the soft sound of her steps. James, not knowing, the custom stayed standing. He froze when he realized he was the only one upright in the hall. Dozens of alien eyes turned toward him in shock. His translator beeped nervously in his hand, trying to catch up with the whispers. But Elira only stopped in front of him, tilting her head curiously. Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "A human," she said, her voice deep yet smooth, echoing across the chamber. "And unbowed." James swallowed hard. His instincts screamed at him to kneel, but his pride as an ambassador reminded him he represented Earth. So he smiled nervously and replied, "On my world, we stand when we meet someone important, to show respect, and to show we are not afraid." The nobles gasped at his boldness, but Elira's smile grew wider, almost amused. She studied him as if he were a puzzle she wanted to solve. Finally, she nodded and said, "Then stand. Let the others see." From that moment on, James felt something change. The hall no longer felt so heavy. Elira's gaze lingered on him longer than expected, as though she was curious about the strange human who treated her not like a goddess, but like a person. Over the next few weeks, James saw more of her. He was invited to private meals, asked to explain Earth's customs, its music, its history. At first he thought it was political courtesy, just the queen trying to understand her allies. But slowly he realized something deeper. She asked about laughter, about love, about childhood. She wanted to know what it felt like to be human, and when James asked her about her own life, he saw that same sadness in her eyes again. She told him of her crown, her throne, her endless duties, of how every word she spoke was judged, every step she took measured, of how she was surrounded by people but always alone. James listened. He didn't give her speeches or polished words. He just listened, and sometimes when the silence grew heavy, he would make her laugh with a silly story from Earth. Elira's laugh was rare, but when it came, it sounded like music that had been locked away for centuries. It was in those quiet moments that James forgot she was an alien queen, and Elira forgot she was supposed to be untouchable. For a heartbeat, they were just two souls, lost in a vast galaxy, finding comfort in each other's company. Neither of them knew it then, but this unlikely friendship was the spark that would ignite a storm, one that would change not just their lives but the future of two worlds. The peace treaty had been signed. Earth and the Sarathi Empire were now allies. To celebrate, the Sarathi court held a grand festival inside the capital city. The streets glowed with floating lanterns, music echoed in the air, and alien dancers moved like rivers of light. James had never seen anything so beautiful. Yet for all the wonder around him, his eyes searched for only one person, the queen. Elira appeared that night, not as the untouchable ruler, but as a woman enjoying the rare taste of freedom. She wore a gown of soft blue, her crown replaced with a simple silver band. Her laughter carried through the crowd as she greeted her people. When her gaze fell on James, her smile softened. She walked toward him, and once again the nobles whispered. The human ambassador standing at her side. It was unheard of. "Come," Elira said, her voice low but commanding. "You will sit With me tonight. James obeyed, though his heart pounded in his chest. They sat at the long royal table, food and drinks spread out in endless variety. The Sarathi wine shimmered in crystal cups, glowing faintly as though stars had melted into liquid. Illyra poured a glass for herself, then one for James. He hesitated, but she lifted hers first, waiting. To new bonds, she said softly. James raised his glass and touched it against hers. The wine burned as it slid down his throat. But warmth followed, a warmth that seemed to reach not only his body but his heart. Illyra laughed at his reaction. Too strong for you, human? He grinned. Maybe, but I'll survive. The night stretched on. They spoke of Earth and Sarathi traditions, of the ocean and the stars, of childhood dreams and lonely responsibilities. Each glass made James braver, his words less guarded. Illyra, too, changed. The weight of her crown seemed lighter. The distance between queen and man seemed to vanish. She leaned closer when he spoke, her eyes shining with curiosity, as if she were drinking in every detail about his world. Hours passed. The music slowed, the hall emptied, and only a few guards remained. Illyra stood, her gaze soft. Walk with me, she said. James followed her through hidden halls until they reached her private garden. Strange flowers glowed under the night sky, their petals releasing soft light. A fountain bubbled quietly at the center. The air was calm, away from the noise of the festival. Illyra sat on the edge of the fountain, her silver gown pooling around her. She looked up at the stars. Do you know what it is like? She asked, her voice almost a whisper. To be surrounded by millions, yet always alone. James felt a heaviness in her words. He sat beside her, careful to keep respectful distance. Yes, he said softly. Loneliness doesn't care about crowns. Even the strongest leaders can feel it. Her eyes turned to him, wide and searching. You understand. They sat in silence for a moment, the night filled with the soft hum of alien insects. Then Illyra smiled faintly. Tell me something, James. On Earth, when two souls feel close, what do they do? James felt his heart catch. Her meaning was clear, but he hesitated. He was human, she was queen. This was impossible, dangerous. Yet the wine in his veins and the warmth in her eyes broke through his doubts. He whispered, They share a moment, something only theirs. Illyra leaned closer. Then share it with me. It was a mistake, he knew it even as it happened. But when her lips touched his, the world disappeared. The stars, the garden, the duties and fears, all faded. There was only the softness of her breath, the fire in his chest, and the sound of her whisper. For, once I feel alive, the night blurred after that. Words were lost, touches were not. A bond was formed, reckless and unstoppable. When James woke the next morning, sunlight poured into the Queen's chamber. His head throbbed, his heart raced, and realization struck him like lightning. He was in her bed, the alien Queen's bed. He sat up quickly, panic crawling through his veins. What had he done? What would this mean? Her people would never forgive it. His world would never understand it. He wanted to run, to disappear. But when Illyra stirred beside him, her face was calm, almost peaceful. James buried his face in his hands. What he thought was one night of weakness would soon turn into something far greater, something that neither crown nor throne could control. It was the night that changed everything. James had tried to bury the memory of that night. He told himself it was nothing more than a mistake. Two lonely souls, too much wine, a moment that should never have happened. For weeks, he avoided looking into Illyra's eyes. He carried on with his duties as ambassador, spoke to the council, and attended meetings. Outwardly, nothing had changed. But inside, James lived in fear. Fear of what the Queen might say. Fear of what her people would do if they knew. Fear of what he had done to his own life. But the truth could not remain hidden forever. One morning, a message arrived. The Queen summoned him to her private chambers. His stomach twisted as he walked the long hallways. The guards bowed and stepped aside, their faces unreadable. He wondered if they already knew. He wondered if they were leading him to punishment. When the great doors closed behind him, James found Elira standing by the tall windows. Sunlight poured in, making her silver skin glow like fire. She turned slowly to face him, and for the first time, he noticed her smile was not the calm, practiced one of a queen. It was something else, something